Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Boozer. I'm happy to welcome you to today's CUGC Connect webinar with Liquidware. And we're going to be talking about speeding up the adoption of work from home practices with Liquidware and Citrix today. And a lot of you are in this situation that we're all forced into right now. And hopefully this will be some helpful information for you. Before we dive in, I have just a couple of housekeeping tips for you. We'll be recording today's presentation and you will receive a link to that recording. It's going to go out in an email tomorrow. That email will come directly from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. Also want to remind you that you can submit your questions at any time during this presentation. We'll probably get to some during the discussion and some afterwards. It just kind of depends on what the questions are and where we are. So just put those in the chat box as you have them and we'll keep an eye on those. And finally, I'll be putting in a link towards the end to a survey. It's short and anonymous. It's for CUGC use only, and we just like to get your feedback. All right, so with us today, we have Christopher Schrameyer. He is a Citrix technology advocate. And you can see his Twitter handle there if you'd like to follow him on Twitter. He's going to be keeping an eye on your questions as they come in and moderating today's discussion. Chris, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's safe and haven't lost your minds yet with this whole quarantine thing, but I think you'll like this this presentation. Went through the slide deck, and I think there's some really good and timely topics that they're going to discuss. So look forward to get your questions in there and look forward to a good discussion.
Thank you. All right, and with us from Liquidware, we have Mark Knouse. He's the Director of Alliances, and Jason E. Smith, the VP of Products and Solutions. This is Mark's first webinar with CUGC, but Jason has been on our webinar stage several times. So welcome back, Jason, and welcome to Mark. I'm going to turn things directly over to you guys now. So go ahead and get us started. I'm sending you the screen right now, Jason.
Thanks, Stephanie. We are so pleased to sponsor CUGC. We were one of the inaugural sponsors. We were one of the inaugural sponsors when CUGC got started, and it's been so valuable to us, and the discussions that we have, even among the regional user groups, have been beneficial. As a matter of fact, one of the last things I did, one of the last road trips I did, was to go speak with the CUGC Birmingham group, so that will be forever ingrained in my memory as one of the last road trips I did right before this COVID thing hit home. And likewise, we hope that everyone is doing well, and we want to share with you some of the ways that we can perhaps even help your organization with the solutions that we offer the market in something we've been doing for a long time. We have been squarely in the middle of the virtual desktop industry, and since 2009 when we got started, to help organizations rapidly adopt and help manage virtual desktop environments like Citrix. So we're going to talk about and spend time talking about how you can rapidly add additional users to your Citrix environment, for example, or if you have any other environment that's similar, maybe RDS or others, that these solutions will work well across. Pleased to have with me Mark, as Stephanie had already pointed out. But some of the approaches that we've seen organizations use, and most people on this call and listening in are probably very well aware of Citrix and already a Citrix customer in most regards, but organizations seem to be scrambling to do whatever they can, and we know this firsthand. Even if they have a virtual desktop deployment or a RDS deployment, remote desktop deployment, they are doing a variety of things. We are hearing firsthand. Go out and buy thousands of new laptops, one solution, make sure they're on the VPN maybe, and just allow that to happen and have very widespread workforce out there working from home as they send as many people to work from home to be socially distanced for the COVID situation. enabling individual remote control of corporate PCs, which is probably not the most secure way to go about things. Rely mainly on just G Suite or Office 365 and SaaS apps, of course, and it might not be bad for very modern organizations. Copy files en masse from directories to cloud services, try to get them everything they need off premise to the cloud quickly so they can get to it. Or as most of us on today's call are able to do and able to consider, if you need to rapidly send more users to work from home, deploy a net new Citrix environment, or rapidly expand your current VDI environment and allow people to work from home with an official corporate desktop that has the applications they need, or publish apps, which was left off this list, but publish apps to individual groups of users as well, or to a browser to be able to have a way to do things. And that's a more seamless approach. And with this in mind, Stephanie, we're running 2 polls today, aren't we? And this is the first one, if you want to put that one up. And we're asking, you know, have you indeed found yourself in a position where you needed to rapidly burst scale your VDI deployment, your Citrix deployment, or your Zen app or Zen server environment, virtual apps and desktops, of course, the new term for that. So if you would chime in and let us know, we'll check on that poll a little bit later. And we've got a second poll in a little bit to talk about a little bit more about Liquidware and how we've been squarely in this business of helping you add users or deploy brand new, net new virtual desktop environments. We are the only company that has a full adaptive workspace management suite, which we define as being able to have a controlled user environment that can follow the user from legacy desktops to brand new desktops. So think rapidly onboarding users to Citrix, for example. You can even go cross OS. We'll talk about that a little bit today. Application layering, it's really an application attachment from a VHD, and that can even be hosted in the cloud. And you'll see a demonstration of this technology today. And apps would then follow the user, could follow the user from a legacy environment, even from a competing VDI environment, for example, over to a Citrix environment without having to be repackaged. Very flexible, application-focused attachments, not layering the OS in any way, but bringing those in separate from the image and minimizing base image management. So you can reduce your Citrix base images down to very few. You'll see a demonstration of this today. And then adding visibility to that environment, knowing the user experience of the environment, and being able to monitor everything that matters. So especially when you've got users going to work from home, you may know your Citrix environment very well and how it's performing, and maybe you're using some built-in tools to do that, but we can even monitor the endpoint too. So if they're repurposing, if your users are repurposing a PC at home, you could actually have Stratosphere running on it, so you get the last mile of knowing the connection speed and all the metrics on that end user PC to see if it's actually impacting the Citrix session. And the solutions through that are Profile Unity for UEM, FlexApp for application attachments, and Stratosphere UX. And okay, so you've heard of these types of solutions, right, in the industry, but again, we provide this across any of your Windows desktops. So if you're running physical or virtual or cloud, or you're running VMware and Citrix, or Citrix and a native WVD environment, for example, these solutions will stick with the user. They won't be siloed in any one individual stack, and help you rapidly onboard more users to Citrix as an example, right? And you can go either way with that, and you can scale up and down environments as you need them. So another thing about our environment, our solutions, is that they run on your existing infrastructure. In very few cases do you need anything additional. And as a matter of fact, with Stratosphere, it's a virtual appliance that you're able to put in and spin up, and all the licenses included under Linux are there for that. And then for Profile Unity, all you need is a separate Windows server to be able to run the management console on. And then we rely on the points of the Windows infrastructure, AD, to hook and to be able to launch our client on the endpoints and be off and running. And then some additional storage, obviously, to save off the user environment management, just to have your VHDs for Flex apps that will be attached to the environment. So the sum of this is that we can be spun up very quickly in a proof of concept to get you going. And we even have quick start guides and guided configurations that'll set you in place for what you need. And software is available readily for download. You don't even need a license. There's some built-in demo licenses that will let you play with everything we're showing today. We're going to do things a little bit differently than most of these webinars. We're going to show you in the first few slides a pretty wild demo up front. Mark Knouse will take control and he'll show a Citrix environment. Mark, without further ado, you can explain what you're about to show.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. Okay. Can you see my screen?
You can indeed, and here you will.
Okay, thank you. So hello, everyone. As everyone said, I echo the same sentiments. I hope everybody is safe and healthy, and it's a pleasure to be here. I took a break from some Citrix work, but I'm glad to be back. It feels like home. I'm a inaugural CTA, and I just want to acknowledge how great everyone has done with these CUGC events. I remember when they were first starting, and they really have grown and pollinated, across the globe. So very cool. And without further ado, so we all know PVS and MCS, great solution to manage images and deployment and quick rollouts. But at some point, you hit this ceiling with regards to your images and how they sprawl and how you manage them. And I've always been a proponent of managing applications and not operating systems. And I would say this very often. Users consume applications, not operating systems, but we spend so much time managing the OS and often not enough on the apps. So with Liquidware, what we like to do is get to a zero cost image as lean as possible, and then deliver the applications and user profile settings and data via our product called Profile Unity. Now, what I'm going to show here is I'm going to illustrate and demo for you a light zero cost image with my applications being delivered via FlexApp. And my session just timed out. And if you noticed, we do own the domain name vdi.com. Pretty cool. So as I log into Storefront here, you'll see I have 5 apps. 3 of these 5 are delivered via FlexApp on boot to a Citrix virtual app server. And now I'm going to show you that server. So what's important to note is the applications that I'm showing. Now, these are very light applications. Of course, in your production environment, you may have things like Epic, Cerner, oil and gas applications, whatever your vertical might be. And they would be packaged via our FlexApp packaging console. And we're going to show that a little later. But what I'm showing here is the virtual hard disks that are attached on boot. Okay, so the reason we do that is we have to attach the FlexApps to the machine that's booted and then assign them in Studio. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got Chrome, Edge, and Visual Studio Code. Those applications do not reside within the operating system. They are delivered via FlexApps, and you can see here, and like I said, they're attached on boot so that they're available for the users very quickly. To the operating system, they look like they're natively installed. Okay, they are in program files, they're in the shortcut menu, just as they would be if they were manually installed. But what we've done now is we've decoupled the applications from the actual operating system. So there's VS Code. All right. So now I'm going to go back to here and launch them, and they launch like normal Citrix apps. But that's just part of the story. And in a work from home scenario, especially when you're accelerated like we are now, we need to get apps very quickly, and breaking open an image, installing them, and not knowing what you may or may not break could be a challenge. So that's where we're a big proponent of using FlexApp to deliver these applications very quickly. So I'm going to go over to my desktops as well. Next thing I'd like to show you is, and there's Chrome. And then Chrome operates just like any other seamless app. Okay, I'll move you over here. And while I'm here, I'm going to show the Profile Unity Management Console. Now, you just saw that Citrix Virtual App Server. I'm delivering portability, meaning we could roam and harvest the user settings and data. But I'm also delivering, like I said, the apps at startup, and that's what's right here. And these are FlexApp department installed applications. That's what DIA stands for. And this should mirror what I showed you here. Okay, and this is delivered, like I said, at boot time. So, all right, and we're going to come back to this console in a bit. But now I want to show you a persistent desktop experience, which could be non or persistent, and it could also be multi-session. And you could also roam these user settings between a myriad of platforms. Okay, now this is a clean login, meaning I have not logged in before. I'm a big proponent of fresh profiles and not just connections instead of full logins. So we're executing the Profile Unity console client right now, and that's pulling from this INI file I just showed you over here with all the configuration settings. So once that completes, it will load my wallpaper, any of my icons, and also my applications. So it's a very thin image. Like I said, we try to make it as zero cost as possible. With your reference image or gold image, whatever you may call it, you'd want to install your antivirus software, your any agents that you might want for inventory or things like that. And like I said, this is a fresh profile. There's nothing else installed. I could show you a couple other things. This is Chrome that's installed via FlexApp. All the applications are delivered via FlexApp within this image.
So what we just represented, right, is a perhaps in this work from home scenario we talked about, is a user rapidly needed on board to this environment. And of course, we didn't move the profile over, but we could have run Profile Unity in the legacy environment and just that quick, a smart profile, just the parts that make the user productive, spell checkers and a lightweight profile would be injected right there. And of course, the apps are in there. And instead of having this generic, Citrix based Windows image, the user has all the apps they need and they're off and running.
Right. And I'm just going to simulate a application assignment. I'm going to come into the Profile Unity console, and let's say we have a developer who needs the brackets application. And now I'm going to deploy it out. And I'm going to simulate a log on and log off. And it's going to rerun the Profile Unity client and go out and check if there's a new INI. And then while it's doing so, it's going to see, hey, there's a new application. And it's going to assign and enable that application for consumption. And it'll pop up in a second or so. This process is often faster on a login. Like I said, I'm simulating it. And we support a myriad of storage options for your FlexApp. They could be on an SMB file server. They could be in Azure Blob. In fact, the FlexApps I'm delivering here are all from Azure Blob. So that affords you some cheaper storage and an ability to geo-replicate. Okay, let's see, did it install? It's probably still working because, like I said, I'm pulling that from Azure. So while that's here, I'm actually going to move this over and I'm going to log into a shared desktop environment. Oops, I just full screened. with the same user account. And then my settings, applications should all roam with me. And my wallpaper, of course. And again, this is a fresh login.
So you can leverage the same base image, right? And just assign apps. And that's how we're minimizing base image management for servers and for the desktop.
Correct. And also important to note, we haven't tuned these images at all. I like to give everybody a real good feel of the out-of-box experience. And the great thing about Profile Unity is it's very easy to stand up. We give you some out-of-the-box configurations, and that's exactly what I'm using. I haven't worked with an SE to tune the environment, to streamline anything. It's all out of the box. You can simply download the product via Azure or Amazon if you're in that area doing Citrix on AWS, spin it up, and then deploy a quick configuration and see it in action. So that's still loading. And it's also important to know everything I'm doing here is in Azure, and given some of our work from home challenges, I have noticed some performance issues. So that's it for now. We're also going to show a packaging demo a little bit later. So thank you for listening.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Chris, any thoughts as we transition or any questions that you've seen come in?
We haven't, not at this time.
All right, so again, Liquidware can be used at any phase of your desktop transformation. Most of you probably already have a Citrix deployment, right? So you would be adding users in here, but we can also be used to plan because our Stratosphere solution can be used to assess current machine use and help you design a base image that would work for most users, and then also identify candidates for like the FlexApp solution that you saw there, that you would layer in applications or attach them from a VHD from on-prem storage or in the cloud, as you saw in Mark's demo. When you onboard users, that's where you saw that Profile Unity splash screen run. If you ran Profile Unity in the legacy environment, even a physical Windows desktop, it would have harvested off the user profile, a smart profile, as I said, and then played it back during that time, and the user would be instantly productive. And then the ongoing production is being able to monitor the user experience throughout. So as you grow and scale your deployment, we'd be able to keep an eye on it and head off bottleneck situations before they become mission critical showstoppers. And then obviously the ongoing management of applications. So you don't have to go back and keep editing the base image. You can snap in an application as Mark was demonstrating in that demo. Stratosphere is that solution that gives you that end-to-end visibility. It runs as an agent on the desktop that you would wish to monitor, or the Citrix session that you wish to monitor, and it will correlate that user with the hardware that they're on, and also non-good metrics across the board to do trace route all the way to the endpoint and be able to see these metrics and give you a composite UX score, user experience score. You can look at that per group. You can look at that per individual user. You can use it for help desk support and an active monitoring solution. It has advanced capabilities in there, like the ability to optimize your desktop experience as well, to be able to prioritize CPU and RAM workloads for applications in use that are at the forefront, and you can also deprioritize those in the background, so it can actually take action in that regard. The solution is largely, it's a reporting tool solution, right? And you can build out your own reports as you wish, or many dozens of reports are included to help you diagnose your environment. So it can be used at the assessment phase, and to give you decision support on how to move forward with a Citrix project, for example, or if you're ready to upgrade to the latest version of Citrix and you're re-architecting things, maybe you're moving to Citrix on Azure, it can be used as a point-in-time planning solution to be able to help give you decision support on a way to move forward. Mark, you want to talk to these next couple of reports in here, or this report?
Sure. So while we're in the, sort of this crisis mode, it becomes very critical and crucial to know what's going on in your environment. Are users having a good experience, a bad experience? Are they productive? So while we'd like to do a full planning exercise, a lot of times, in a case like we're in right now, we just get enough data to make some smart decisions. And some of these screens here, you're seeing a lot of information about what's going on in the environment, CPU, login, the delay. We also have what's called a login breakdown assessment to go through each point of the login process. And that's a really good tool because we often find that group policy objects are really stalling the login. And that might be the case when you're rushing to get a desktop out. Maybe there's an old GPO that's just straggling along and everybody has forgotten about it. Got to remember Active Directory is like 20 years old now. There's probably quite a few admins that have touched group policy. So tools like Liquidware Stratosphere UX really help you pinpoint what's going on and troubleshoot the environment. And again, when you're in a situation like we are now, getting users to applications is crucial so they could work. One last bit too, there's so much data we collect, but I like to call it snack, dine, and feast, right? So if you just want a little bit of data, you can snack on it. But if you really want to get deep and do some data mining and triaging, it's there for you as well. It goes across the whole spectrum of IT professionals, whether it's a help desk, an analyst, an admin, and then also your architect and engineers.
Great, thanks.
I have a,
Yeah, we
I have
do
a
have
few
a
questions, guys, if now's a good
Okay,
time.
great. Yes, perfect.
We had a question about asking what is the advantage of Liquidware compared to Citrix UPM or FS Logic in regards to profiles?
That's a great question. I've got this slide will help outline it, so I'll leave this slide up. Liquidware runs across all of your desktops, not just your Citrix desktops, so you can leverage it for situations just like you have for, you may need to burst scale for your Citrix environment. Let me give you a use case. The organization that runs the rail system in Washington, DC, easy enough to figure out who that is without saying their name. They had 1,000 Citrix users a month ago, and that was just for their normal environment. They needed to send users to work from home. Their support, admin support, such as HR, finance, and those. So there's about 4,000 more desktop, 4,000 more physical desktop users that were not running Citrix environment, right? They were able to deploy Profile Unity in that environment, for example, and it was able to pick up the profiles in the legacy environment, and they were able to burst scale their Citrix environment to also add licenses, 4,000 users to their Citrix environment. And at first login, Profile Unity was able to bring in the user persona from their legacy desktops and assign that to the Citrix environment as well. They were often running in seconds. And of course, they can use FlexApp in there as well to be able to have users, applications follow them. So you see what I mean, running at a higher plane, we're running outside of the silo of where Citrix UPM is a good solution for just a Citrix environment, right? But if you want to interconnect and have your users have the flexibility to log off of any Windows session and onto the next, Profile Unity is excellent at doing that. It can also enable you to end the migration cycle. So I'm speaking to several points on the slide without addressing them directly, but this question is great timing for it too. Maybe those users were in a legacy OS, even Windows 7. Maybe they had some laggards and didn't assign them, and they're going to Windows 10. Profile Unity Smart Profile will adapt at first login in those seconds that you saw in Mark's demo. And that profile, just the parts that matter, application data settings, for example, will work and be recognized across OS, and they can go back. So after this COVID situation is over, when they're working back in the office, there'll be no time lost, and they'll be able to go back to those other desktops if that's the more efficient way to handle those. So it can run in a Citrix environment to pick up the profile if it's been managed by Citrix UPM. going back to the question there, we can get far more granular than UPM can. We can run, we run everything in Profile Unity with admin privileges as far as its assignments. And in that regard, we run as admin, and we can pick up parts of the profile all the way down to system root that are not in the user space, right? So it's far more powerful in that way. And also the profile corruption that you may see with solutions that are tied to a normal Windows profile do not happen with Profile Unity. We either write the profile or we don't. If it fails because of a log off did not fully occur, it will default to the last known good profile, and you won't see profile corruption in that way. We also have profile rollbacks, up to 99 versions of the profile, for example. So you could specify maybe realistically the last 3 known good profiles are always archived, and you as an administrator can quickly replace those and have a user log back in. So if they've actually done something to hose up their own profile, those can be put into place to have disaster recovery and a user back up and running without having to reset that user's profile and frustrate them back to 0. Right, so that's just some of the ways. And when you look at Profile Unity's full user environment management, we have policy management that goes across all these context-aware settings. FlexApp can be part of that to assign applications based on the same context-aware settings. And again, it works across multiple Windows environments. So excellent timing, Chris, for that question. I think I saw another one on harvesting, right?
Yeah, they were asking about roaming profiles for harvesting.
Yep. So if you're running roaming profiles in your current environment, that's akin to a local profile, right? That's saved up to the network. Just to paraphrase how that normally works. We can actually pick that up. We can pick up a UPM profile or a roaming profile or even a local profile, because what we're doing is picking up the data from its the native places in Windows. You can run us in tandem with that. Then if you agree that we're superior to the way that you've managed profiles in the past, you switch the other technology off and you've harvested a smart profile, because what we're not going to pick up is caches and needless areas of bloat, because we have rule sets that'll pick up only the file systems that matter, written by our experts here at Liquidware, and give you a very lean and smart profile that will work across the same Windows environment or mixed Windows environments. So your Citrix VDI environment can have the same similar profile that your Windows Server environment has. So your published desktops, for example, and you end up with one profile per user. So that's what we mean by harvesting. The second thing we do to harvest, that's a harvest of the profile, and then we hydrate when we bring it back. And that's just well, really marketing terms, but that's actually what's happening there too. We can hydrate the local profile. And you may want to use, going back to the question earlier, you may want to use FSLogix too. We have a profile disk ourselves, which is outlined on this. It's a profile on a disk, VHD, and that's the same way FSLogix works. It's optional. You can use ours if you wish. In certain circumstances, you may find that we run more efficient. In other circumstances, you may find that you're fine with FSLogix, and that's fine, because what we have is a portability technology. That's been what I've been speaking about, making the profile portable, and it's hydrated back to whatever you're using for the profile. If it's just a local profile in a non-persistent environment that's blown out, that's okay, because Profile Unity brings it back at the next login in seconds. If it's an FSLogix profile to help you with a very fast login of a VDI environment, we will hydrate an FSLogix profile. So one thing that FSLogix really doesn't do is pick up a profile in a legacy environment and bring it across. We give you the best of both worlds. We pick it up, we bring it across, and we can hydrate an FSLogix profile disk. And now remember, an FSLogix profile disk, for all intents and purposes, and our own profile disk, by the way, is the same as a local profile. It's managed with the ntuser.dat file, which can become corrupt, and you may have to reset it from time to time, but that's okay if you're running Profile Unity portability as well, because when you reset it, we'll repopulate and rehydrate that disk based on delta differentials, and that's where you're going to get your time savings of login. FSLogix can make it happen very quickly. Profile Unity's portability will pick up and append to that the latest version of the profile on a file by file basis. Any other questions in there, Chris, or do you want to further clarify or anything else said?
No, I think we're good to keep moving along.
Thanks. I've covered most of these points for Profile Unity in the previous slide, and with that, you can have basically a zero downtime migration across OS versions. One thing that we've been talking about as an organization for the last 6 or 7 months is this concept of cloud staging your user data. And this is because everything that you've seen today in the demonstration and what we're talking about can be saved to object-based file storage. So if you start at the left side of this, if you run us in a legacy Windows environment, we not only can use Stratosphere to assess, but then we can do that, what I described as a harvest mechanism, and we can manage the user. And when they log off, the first log off, we can take their user profile, save it up to any of the 3 top cloud storage areas you see there, AWS, Google, or Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and we can have their applications that follow them, because as you saw in Mark's demonstration today, they could be hosted on object-based storage, and those applications would even follow them to the next environment. Then we can take user-authored data, things they have created themselves, and you may have had folder redirection set up in your legacy environment, or you may have had nothing, and allowing users to save those to the local My Documents and hard drives and things like that. We'll harvest that as well. We'll provide you an inventory of that to know when that has occurred per user, and we can save those to the cloud services that are located at the bottom. In addition to this, we can also save them to Citrix share file, OneDrive, Dropbox, Citrix share file, Google Drive, things like that, so they can have their user authored data accessible to their next desktop. And of course, Stratosphere, again, can be used to baseline the legacy environment and prepare it for the new one. If you look at the right column here, we've provided all that same data to be accessible from the cloud when the user first logs on to anything that you see here. And we're talking about Citrix mainly today. And it's no mistake that we left the other desktop providers in here, because after all, you may be moving from an AWS workspaces environment into Citrix. And we can do the same thing. That could be on the legacy side, and you could be moving that into Citrix, or from VMware into Citrix as well. So helpful across that. And we're talking about cloud services here, but if you're talking about on-prem and you need to run on-prem for security reasons only, we can harvest all the stuff instead of staging it to the cloud to an on-prem SIPs file share, and then provide it that you hit the same area, all this would seamlessly flow down. Mark, would you like to talk about these additional Stratosphere once we're in production with an environment, and how we monitor?
Sure, Jason. So once you get into a steady state operational flow, it's really important to keep an eye on the performance levels of the machines, because as we know, Windows, it never performs any better than the day it's built. So there's often, we perform these optimizations and tuning, and they're really preventative, but as newer apps are deployed, and specifically like extensions and plugins, you could see the environment often drift and get slower and slower. More importantly, specifically in a desktop, persistent desktop environment, folks don't like to reboot their machines very often, because it is a pretty cool feature that when you log into Storefront and click the icon, it's readily available. So with dashboards like we're showing here, we're going to give you a big, broad state view, so you can paint with a broad stroke and see what's going on across your whole fleet. And then you can pinpoint down into very quickly, perhaps you need a rolling reboot of a certain user population. But not, like I said earlier, it's not too onerous for a help desk admin to come in and also get some information, perhaps grab that information and put it into a ticket that can be escalated to L2 and L3. Coming from an operations background, that was very common use for Stratosphere. We would have our help desk team see patterns of perhaps host populations of VMs not performing well, or specific silos of Citrix virtual apps, or former XenApp servers. That information would be taken from Stratosphere and put into a ticket, so that we could dig further. So this is a really important piece. As I said, as you escalate up to the admin chain, the first thing we're going to want to look at is, where did it start? The profile, the usage, and where has it ended up? So the user may have started with a 500 meg Outlook profile, but within a few months they're now up to 2 gigs, and then we're wondering why there's login delays and application launch issues and things like that. Or maybe the end user has admin rights and they've downloaded something where it's just creating way too many disk Iaps, and we learned from our mistakes early on in VDI, but it's still a problem we take for granted often. People often ask, well, how many Iaps do you need? And so pretty much the answer is, well, how many do you got? So having a tool like this, where we could look at the observed users very quickly and see the drift between what's happened in our known baseline physical world and what's gone on in the virtual world, is very crucial. So with the uptick in work from home, we're getting a lot of requests from admins. Listen, we understand, the Liquidware cycle is to, assess, plan, deploy, but I just don't have the time for that. I'm in a real crisis mode. I've got all my employees working, hours just to get these desktops out. I need 3 things. Can my employees access the environment? Okay, are they getting connection denied, or all the myriad of Citrix errors we've seen throughout the years? And then once they're connected, do they stay connected? Okay, are we seeing user populations drop in certain areas? And then, okay, they're connected, but does it take 5 minutes to launch Word or Outlook or SAP? And do they have access to all the applications and data they need, right? Let's take a look at the profiles. Are things just missing? So these 3 key things are very crucial to monitoring remote users. And we give a quick dashboard on what we call the UX score, good, fair, and poor. And in this environment here, we've got 7 that are in fair condition, 0 that are poor. So that's pretty cool.
We're monitoring the actual endpoint in this regard too, not just the Citrix session, right?
Right. And that's one thing I love about Liquidware is, we also support iGel and other thin client devices. And as an operations professional in my previous life, that last mile, that endpoint was often a black box to us. We never really knew what was going on, what type of wireless, maybe 3G or a Starbucks Wi-Fi. We never really knew. So with this tool here, as you can see down on the bottom, we're getting max hop times and max peak jitter. And for us in the Citrix environment, HDX is so mature and it does very well with latency, but what any remote display protocol doesn't do well is jitter. It can adjust to the conditions, but ultimately the huge fluctuations are going to impact to the user, and that's what we really want to key in on. And that helps us here with being able to get that what we call the trace route from the endpoint all the way up to the server. So, and getting back to this is one of our special Power BI reports that we've created. And the reason for this report and why it resonates so much with me is because I've been in these situations where you don't have time to really create all these elaborate spreadsheets and mine all this data from 4 or 5 different places, from the hypervisor, from Studio, from AD. So what we're showing you here are 3-point metrics. Who's connected? Are we operational? And more importantly, who's productive? Okay. Throughout after the end of this exercise, I know there's going to be many postmortems. What did we learn? And the poor administrators or service managers who have to concatenate all this data, I really feel for them because they're going to have a tight deadline to get this postmortem up. It's going to be highly executive visible. But what we have here is a remote access dashboard, and it came from Stratosphere UX because we're pulling so much data, but we've condensed it to exactly what you need. And there's also a slide 2 to this dashboard where we get even a little more granular. So again, IT management, you can see the machine count, the days, the hours, what was the CPU percentage, you know, page faults, graphics, login delay, latency, packet loss, things like that. After we learn from all this, and then this, you know, one of those things for remote end user computing, specifically when remote display technologies is, and VDI for that matter, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to stress test everything in ways we've never done before, right? Now we all simulate stress tests and things like this, but this is real user, real data. And we're going to have this data now to go back and make informed decisions with what we call a spot check.
Thanks, Mark. I'm going to talk a little bit more about FlexApp, shift gears a little bit, and then we'll show our second demo here shortly of how do you package up an application and make it a FlexApp application. So I think maybe this was a related question earlier. How are we different from some of the things offered in Citrix? In this case, Citrix app layering. So FlexApp even can indeed work hand in hand with Citrix app layering. We have some customers that have chosen to use both. They've decided that Citrix app layering in their own environment was great for patch management, OS management, and but when it came to applications, they wanted to keep those totally separate from a base image, and they found that once you package up applications with FlexApp, so it offers the following benefits to them in organizations like that. Once an application is packaged with FlexApp, it can go cross OS, so you don't have to repackage it. It's not tied to the OS in any way. If the application itself supports the other operating system that you're about to go to, the package will work. The package will work across various environments. So if you're moving from a different type of VDI environment over to Citrix, know that we support those as well. So you can add users to your Citrix environment and bring them across from other competing environments. We're not in the business of telling you which one would be the best way to go, but when you're rapidly onboarding users to Citrix, like from the work from home scenario, you could have comfort knowing that your applications are going to work without repackaging them if you've offered them to other virtual desktop environments. You can assign applications to unique users, and you do this with our context-aware settings. I've mentioned a couple times, but it's really an underrated conversation there. Our context-aware settings work with everything Profile Unity user environment management, as well as the application layering that you have heard about FlexApp. And you can even append to a user session, like if you need to manage a registry key a little bit different, to have a application work a little bit different, you can have a context-aware setting that not only applies a FlexApp, but also modifies the registry in some way. Maybe it's a run once dialog box that you need to get rid of that you didn't account for in packaging, and you can do those sorts of things using our context-aware settings. And now you see why our user environment management solution is a great way to manage the applications that will be layered. So it's one cohesive environment, works very well together without having multiple consoles. The technology works and complements other things like your SCCM strategies. So it's not the only way that you have to deliver applications, but it is a way to complement your other approaches. It works with MSIX applications as well. It can also deliver AppV applications. If you want to see any of these, we have videos that are readily available. You can Google FlexApp against any of those terms, and you'll see how, for instance, we work with AppV applications. So you don't have to abandon what you've done in the past to deliver them dynamically from a VHT and to separate those out of the base image. And that's the thing that you see, is that really we can drastically reduce the number of base images you have. Instead of having a base image of Citrix for the finance department, for example, and the HR department, for example, you can start to have generic type images that work across your environment. And FlexApp applications can be assigned directly to users. So you can have a group called HR. They can be hitting the same base image for VDI or in a published desktop environment as well, yet they have their own unique images. And we isolate the sessions for what applications are there. So the HR department won't necessarily see the applications that the finance department has unless it's been assigned to both of them. Yet they're hitting the same base image originally, and that's how you can get down to as few as one base image across your entire Citrix environment and just manage the apps accordingly. A very application-based approach, and that's another way that we're, stressing that we're different than Citrix app layering, for example, which we agree has its place and is superior in image management for the OS, but you can use FlexApp to complement that. All right, I'm going to jump past this slide and the others, so we'll make sure we have enough time for the demonstration. I'm even going to jump past this one too, but we recently helped a customer, to summarize this quickly, actually, 70,000 employees, and they needed to rapidly onboard additional users into the environment. We were able to help them in that regard. I'd like to jump right to that demo again with Mark Knouse to show you how an application's packaged up and how it's assigned. And while we're switching that over, Chris, any questions you've seen come through or questions from yourself?
No, I think you've been answering them as you've been going along, so we're good to go.
Great. Mark, do you have the right to share out your screen?
Yes. Okay. Is it showing?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I see it. Or I
Okay.
did see it.
Yep.
Now
Okay,
I see
well, we
it.
can go forward. Yep.
How about now?
Yes.
I see it too.
Okay. So what I'm showing you here is, and perhaps some folks have never seen this, but this is the FlexApp packaging console. We call it the FPC. I'm looking at my inventory right here. I am going to create, and we package some of the craziest things, like even the Citrix client, any client, just to have fun with, to see how it works. Just try to, we always do these desktop and a desktop things. I know we've done that for the longest time. But I'm going to go through and create a package. And just to make it easy, I'm going to call it CUGC Notepad. And I've downloaded this to my downloads folder. And you would just go and find the installer. Now you could download it, you could copy it from a network share. It could be anywhere the FPC can get access to. And I'm also going to copy this to a local file share. But if I wanted to, I could choose cloud here, and it would allow me to now use Amazon S3 or Microsoft Azure. And if I chose one and I went to browse, I would then see all the cloud storage I'm enabled to see. But I'm going to do VHD for this one. So that's about it. Those are the real two parameters you need. You need the source and destination. And we give you that option, right? Either cloud, local disk. You could even package it locally if you have a packaging machine. I'm doing all this in the cloud. So let's do VHD. What's happening now is we're creating and mounting a VHD on the local file system. And once that's created, it's going to launch a capture process, and it's going to run through the installer of the application. Now, a good 70% of applications run through very smoothly. There are those that require a special recipe where you may need a script or a license component. Now the installer is going to kick off. Now Notepad++ is a very easy one, but I just want to go through this quickly.
Yep, we've done complicated apps, including Epic. We've got a hospital here in Atlanta that is delivering Epic with FlexApp, which is a pretty big and large and complicated app.
So it opened, it executed, and then we're done. So now we're going to close that off and complete the FlexApp packaging process, and then it'll be available in our inventory. Like Jason said, I like to push the envelope every now and then, and I've packaged AutoCAD, Revit, Civil 3D, Bentley, SolidWorks, and they're fun because they're often like 20 gig packages. Here's Solid Edge. That's an 8 gig VHD. You definitely want to make sure that's on a faster level storage. putting that in the cloud may be a little slow for you, depending on your user expectations. So now that that's packaged, I could come over here to my inventory, and I should be able to see it. There's CUGC Notepad. Now I can assign it to any of my options I have here. And as you saw, there's a couple policies in there for Amazon WVD, and most importantly, Citrix, what we're showing right now. But like Jason said, you can move these across all platforms you need to migrate from them, even if it's a normal RDS terminal services environment. So adding an app, very simple, drag and drop, save it. And ease of use makes for a very easy POC. So if you're interested in doing more, I wholly recommend, downloading or getting an appliance, getting our trial. It's very easy to stand up. You just need a file server and a target, like even a virtual machine, a plain virtual machine. You don't need a system environment. Get the feel of it and then move on to Citrix. So now that that is there, it would then show up when I logged off and logged back in. And these were two that I did before, Putty and Kindle. So that's how easy it is to flex app, then consume. So
Great.
we say flex app, package, deploy, consume.
Yeah. So I think the audience may find our approach to packaging very very refreshing. We call it fast packaging. As you see, the same amount of time it took to run the installer, it was actually packaged, other than the small amount of time to provision the VHD. So that another key difference in there, and then it would work across all operating system environments. Thanks, Mark, for that demonstration.
You're welcome.
I'm going to reach back again and ask Chris if he's seen any questions come through, or did it prod any thoughts in his mind about what he's seen today in the technology?
We had an interesting question. If you've encountered any issues with packaging apps that rely on named user accounts, such as Adobe Creative Cloud.
Mark, you want to take that one?
So the packaging you can get through very easily. It would be the same. We've done that, but then you may require some scripting during launch to ensure that the parameters are correct. So that's one of those apps that require more of a recipe, but once they're captured and launched, it's some of the other apps might be ones that require a dongle. Those that are tied to a MAC address, they get complex, and there's what we call the art of packaging, and anyone who's done AppV, ThinApp, Napier application sequencing environment would be used to.
Mm-hmm. I'd be glad to help with that one, though. If we may have a knowledge base article on it, or KB article. If you look at that up, you may find that. If not, we'd be happy to engage with you and give you further feedback if we've actually done that with Adobe Cloud. I know we've done Creative Suite, obviously, throughout it, and even portions of Creative Suite to be able to mix and match licenses and help companies save money on licenses in that regard, instead of the entire full Creative Suite, only portions of it. Same way with Office. It's a good question.
All right, thank you.
All right, our solutions are available as a suite known as Liquidware Essentials. We didn't get to talk about that so much today, but know that if you are interested in Stratosphere, it's available a la carte. Flex App, even though the management console in Profile Unity is there, we can limit it down to just application layering. So if you're happy with your UEM that you have today, inquire with us about a Flex App type license. And then Profile Unity is available too without Flex App. Most organizations find significant value and license the two together, known as Profile Unity with Flex App. And all these solutions are available for download right now. If you were to go to our website, you can download them, and I believe there's a 15-day trial still included with every one of our solutions, so you can stand up a POC relatively quickly. There's quick start guides that are available that you can check out, and here are some of the URLs that you can take a look at and make sure you can go out there and play with everything that you saw today. And with that, I will say that we're doing a work from home contest. Show us how you're working from home. If you'll give us a little hashtag on Liquidware and WFH, take a picture of your office. Even let us know that you were on today's webinar, and we'd be glad to reach out to you and see if we can't send you some of our sweet free stuff that we would normally give out at a trade show. So post that to Facebook or Twitter. Our Facebook account is Liquidware, easy to find us and follow us. And our Twitter account is the same at Liquidware. So if you put those hashtags in there, we'd be glad to give you a follow back and send you what we can from the Primo closet that we have in the Chicagoland area. Stephanie, one last call for questions, and Chris, and I'll turn it back over to the two of you.
Okay, Christopher, do you see any other questions that he didn't address during the presentation?
I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, I just have a couple of announcements for you guys. Get my screen back up. All right. Okay, so obviously CUGC local in-person events are not happening right now, but we are having our local groups meet virtually, and those are called CUGC to go. So on your screen, you'll see the next upcoming events that we have scheduled. So a couple of our groups are joining up. So you'll see on April 29th, Nashville and Atlanta are partnering up, and then on the 30th, Fox Valley, Madison, and Milwaukee are joining together, and Raleigh and the Triad area in North Carolina on May 6th, but you don't have to live in those areas to join these meetings. That's kind of the cool thing about it. So you can pop in if you're in another part of the country or another part of the world and see what goes on with the other local groups. I did put a link in the chat window to our events calendar, just so you can check out what's coming up. We have 2 user share webinars coming up next week. Those are webinars put on by community members. So next week we've got 2 CTPs presenting on EUC performance, and then we also have our Women in Tech presenting a conversation with the Chief Diversity Officer, Nikki Lewis-Simon. Both of those are going to be great, so check those out. And then, as I mentioned before, I put a link in the chat window for the survey. It's short and anonymous, and it's just for CUGC use. If you opted in at registration for a chance to win the Nintendo Switch Lite, that winner will be chosen at random after the webinar. So we will post that on Twitter. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at #MyCUGC if you want to give us a shout out, or follow us at MyCUGC. And just remind you to check us out online. And, you know, like I said, we are not having our in-person events, so we have lots of stuff online for you to check out. Forums, lots of technical blogs. There's been a lot of great blog content popping up lately. So do visit us online and see what's going on. And again, you will get a link to the recording tomorrow in an email. And I don't know, Jason, are you going to share this slide deck with us too? I know you had some links in the end that people might want if they didn't get a screenshot.
Yeah, I'd be glad to send it over to you.
Okay.
Get that out to you. Thanks.
Awesome. Yep. So we'll be sure to include that with the recording that you'll get a link to tomorrow. All right. Thank you guys so much. I want to thank Jason and Mark for being with us today from Liquidware, and thanks to Chris for keeping an eye on all those questions. And just reach out to us on Twitter or at hq@mycugc.org if you have any questions. And we hope you all stay safe and healthy and enjoy the rest of your day.